Hello, this is RICKY, the Android guy. Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know about the Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge. So this is going to be just a video explaining all the important things that you need to know, and let's get right down to it. The first bit of information is all the hardware and software for the device. So in everywhere we've seen, it is going to be an octa-core processor. It looks like overseas and in the US, but we'll see if that changes. It's also going to be a 5.1 Quad HD Super AMOLED display, coming in at an impressive 577 pixels per inch. We have a 16 megapixel optical image stabilization camera on the back and a 5 megapixel on the front, with the widest aperture we've seen on a cell phone, that being f1.9. For an Android, this is really impressive for it to have, so it's really great to see this on a flagship device. It does have 32 gigs storage, 64 and 128. However, we will not have a micro SD card anymore, so that's the first big thing you should know. There's no micro SD card expandability on either of these two devices. There is, however, going to be 3 gigs of RAM, and the battery will be 2550 milliamps on the Galaxy S6, and the Galaxy S6 Edge will actually have 50 milliamps more, coming in at 2600 milliamps. Another big thing is the improved fingerprint scanner. Now, the reason why that's so nice is because it's just a tap. It's no longer a swipe, so it's much like Touch ID on the iPhone, and it really just makes it a lot easier to secure all of your information on your device. Now, for the software portion, by far my favorite new software feature is going to deal with the cameras. And so for the two cameras, we're going to have Quick Launch Camera, which is a double press of the home button, which immediately launches the camera in under 1 second. In 0.7 seconds, your camera launches. That is amazing. By the way, this will even do it if you have your phone screen off, and even if you have a lock screen password. You can still get to your camera by double pressing your home screen, and it'll launch in 1 second. That is just amazing, and probably one of the best features Samsung's ever put in their smartphones. Another thing is, I was a huge fan of real-time HDR, but I love that it's going to have an auto for this now, because in certain situations, like low light situations, for instance, you don't need HDR, but sometimes I forgot to turn it off. Now this will be on auto, so I will not need to worry about it. It will do it itself. HDR improves all bright daylight photos dramatically, so you always want to leave it on for all daytime photos. Now, for the low light photos, the low light quality is very impressive, and we're going to go over samples and more in depth for each of these software features, but this is a really big one that I love. The low light is dramatically improved, and Samsung threw a little jab, which we'll see later. You also have ultra power saving mode, which we found before, and that is still 10%, 24 hours of standby time, which is really great. Download booster allows you to use Wi-Fi and LTE simultaneously to download speeds up to, I've gotten up to 80 megabits per second at my house. Private mode, of course, save all your photos and videos so that no one else will see them when they're going through your phone. And of course, you can actually change themes now. This is something we've seen on Android and on rooted devices, but we've never seen it on a flagship of this caliber, where you can really change it and simplify it, really to the degree that we've seen other Androids do it, but not at this level, and just really great sharing of themes and changing them. Now let's go over the colors. The colors are going to be gold platinum, white pearl, black sapphire, green emerald, and blue topaz. These are going to be the 5 different colors. However, as you do see a division on the left and right, the left side is most likely going to be the side that's everywhere in the world, and the right side will most likely be very little seen in different parts of the world. Now, it did look like the Edge was the emerald and the blue was the S6. So it looks like the green one will only be in the Edge, and the blue one will only be in the S6. Gorilla Glass 4. Now, if you didn't notice on the devices, they do have glass on both the front and the back. Now, this is Corning Gorilla Glass 4. It's really, really durable. It's the most durable to date, meaning that it's actually more durable than sapphire glass, which is really nice. For those of you who didn't know, sapphire glass is the other competitor of Gorilla. Sapphire is less scratch resistant. However, Gorilla is still the stronger between the two. Now, this one is supposed to also have the scratch resistant that Sapphire brought to the table. So we will see how this works. Now, the processor was made a big deal because it's the first ever 64-bit processor with a 14 nanometer size, which just means that it is half the size of a normal processor, meaning that it can move at speeds beyond what any other processor can do, meaning that it is 20% faster than other processors out in the market, and it is 35% more energy efficient than any other processor on the market. Again, this is the only 14 nm on the market, so this is really, really important. It beats out everything when it comes to this. Now, the other big thing and something that's bringing Samsung in a lot of money is they've developed the first Ddr4 Ram. What that means is your RAM is much, much better performing than ever before, and because this S6 has 3 gigs of RAM, this means that it is like having 6 gigs of the old RAM almost. That's very impressive. This RAM is going to move tremendously faster, and it's making Samsung a lot of money because now Apple and LG want it as well because they can't match this RAM, and now they want the Ddr4 RAM from Samsung, and they will be buying it this year. Now, we have a lot of aesthetic changes. One really big one that I like, just from helping out people like my mom, brother, and people that just don't know how to always use a smartphone, this is really great. They're simplifying the look from the left side to the right side. So you can see now it just says attach, send, and more instead of having the save, the X, the send envelope, and the ... for the menu. So this is really a lot easier, I find, for a lot of people that don't know how to use a smartphone. Also, the look has changed, of course. We see different styles between the contacts, between the phone. Everything looks different. Not to mention that these are now color coordinated. So green will be for all phone information, purple will be for video, and of course, orange stays for contacts. So we've seen this before from Samsung, but they really wanted to stress out that even the overlay, the fonts at the top, the color at the top will all be unison to give it a more unifying design. And let's get down to the camera. So this is the new camera interface. It's not too far off from what we saw on the Note 4, but just a bit more polished. Again, Samsung stressed the fact that now, instead of just a little magic wand, which no one knew what it did, now it put the magic wand and put effect below it. So it's really starting to name everything so that people just know what this is, which I think is really smart and can cause a lot less confusion. Now, the modes on the bottom right give us this. So you have Auto, Pro, which we'll get into in a second, Selective Focus, which we've seen before, Panorama, of course, Slow Motion, Fast Motion, and Virtual Shot. Now, I'm not sure Virtual Shot is the same as Virtual Tour that we saw before, but it does seem that way just based on what we're seeing here. Now, my guess is the VR that we're going to talk about later will tie into this. You can also download more shots. I'm missing my smooth motion video taken from here, so I know I will need that to download as well. Plus, there's some other ones you might like. I love their food shot as well. It makes the food pop if you're posting a lot of Instagram photos. And now we get to Pro. So for the Pro section, we have a lot of different things right here coming in, of course, of the color that you can change, the auto in terms of focal point, white balance, ISO, and EV. This is really great as a person that's done a lot of photography in the past. You even have metering. I mean, you just have a lot that's really good, and I'm very excited for all of these different modes. And then the jab heard around the world, or knockout punch, really. They basically called out Apple. The gauntlet was thrown down, and they hit him over the head with it. The iPhone 6 versus the Galaxy S6. This is the difference in the low light that we were talking about earlier. This is what the wider aperture allows to happen, not to mention, of course, the better camera overall in 16 megapixels in terms of size. You get more detail, you get more light, and of course, the image processor is better, so you get less noise. But you can see it. This is the difference between the two. Now, of course, the low light was not only in photos, but it's also in videos. So when we look at the next photo, bam, we see a huge difference. Now, the video did move closer on the S6, but this was just the one where we got both in the same shot. So I wanted to show you this part, but it really made a difference. That is what you get for video on the iPhone 6 Plus, and that's what you get for video on the Galaxy S6. Both without a flash, both in the same conditions, and that is really the difference. That is just amazing, and it really, again, was just the knockout punch heard around the world today. Now, in terms of battery life, because battery is important, it's the second most important thing besides camera, or most important depending on your point of view. 12 hours of regular Wi-Fi connection or 3G internet. LTE gets about 11 hours. Video playback gets 13, and music playback gets 49. Now, it is important to note that even though some people were worried about the S6 having a smaller battery compared to the S5, this is still 1 hour longer than the iPhone 6 currently is in terms of LTE, and 2 hours longer in terms of what the iPhone 6 is in terms of video playback. So you are getting a better battery life overall still, not to mention there's other advantages as well, such as the ability that it is now the fastest charging phone out there, the fastest. So it really made a point that it has a newer version of quick adapt charging that no other competitor has, which allows it to charge 10 minutes, 4 hours worth of battery, which is just really impressive, and it is done very, very well. So much to the point that they hit another punch at Apple and said that it does take half the time to charge an iPhone 6 half the time to charge a Galaxy S6 in the time you would take to charge an iPhone 6. So the Galaxy S6 charges at double the speed of the iPhone 6, which again is really impressive and shows just how far the USB is coming compared to the Lightning connector. This picture I just wanted to show because I thought it was so cool. So I'm an Avengers fan, can't wait to see it, and just wanted to share that with you. All right, Samsung Pay. This was another punch, again, heard around the world. Apple Pay is currently accepted at about 10% of retailers in the nation. This is accepted at 90%. That is such a huge difference. 90% has this, and I've actually used this. This comes from a company called LoopPay, which Samsung recently purchased, and I'll show you how this works. Basically, you have your credit card stored in your phone, which you activate with your fingerprint scanner, just like you would with Apple Pay. The difference is this is far superior because not only does it save it on a token-based system, which really makes it so that even Samsung, and it's not even on the phone, it really has its own chip to save out everything and its own software to save everything. But all you have to do is tap it next to pretty much any scanner in the US and it will pay. And I can tell you, I've personally used this technology at Target, at Starbucks, at Vons, at Best Buy, and at Costco, and it works. Costco, I was able to use my debit card. For everywhere else, I use my credit card. It is amazing how simple this is and how great it works. It really is impressive, and it really does work at about 90%. The only place where I didn't have it work was at a mom and pop restaurant. Everywhere else, though, it was very easy and simple. The main hangup that this had was that it didn't have marketing for people to know and feel comfortable with scanning and paying this way. However, with this, Samsung, of course, will put in much needed marketing behind it, and will have everything you need for everyone in the US to use this and have a much higher adoption rate than any payment system we currently have in place. And of course, they already have pretty much every major credit card company behind them, as well as Bank of America, Chase, Citi, US Bank, and other banks as follows. So it really is impressive just how far that Samsung is coming in payments, and it's doing it right. You have to hand it to them. They're doing it right, and it's much more accessible to everyone. Now, the Edge. What does the Edge add? Well, we've seen it adds the same notification feature that the Note Edge had, but the Galaxy S6 Edge actually has a swipe feature where you can save up to 5 contacts, and they're each color coordinated. Now, why is it important to have them color coordinated? Of course, you can call them or text them immediately from any screen, just like the Note was able to. However, what's really interesting is if you have your phone face down, the color shines to let you know who is calling out of those colors. So if my girlfriend was purple and I had the phone face down like this, it would be a purple color shining on the phone. Not only that, but they did something pretty damn clever, and that is they used the fingerprint sensor, or not the fingerprint sensor, sorry, the heart rate monitor on the back to actually sense when you touch it so that you can set up the quick reply that you've already set up, and immediately it will send it to them without even lifting the phone. That is really cool. The really great part I could see this at is places like work and school. I mean, I could just have this say on my desk and I could just see, oh, it's my girlfriend. I can't talk to her right now, but I'll push this. And then my message would be, oh, I'm at work. I'll call you back during my lunch or something like that. But that's a great feature to have, and it's something that I really like. You can also pull from the edge screen when you have a miss notification. And again, it'll be the same color. And then you'll get to see everything in detail of that person. You can call them, text them immediately, just to show you of how that edge screen swipe works. And now we go to the new Gear VR. Yes, I will have to sell my Gear VR in about a month because apparently I need the new one. That's right. Now this looks very similar to the current Gear VR. The very subtle differences are on the side right here. And it just has a newer touchpad. It just has the arrows pointing up, down, so you kind of know it's a touchpad, because a lot of people didn't know where to touch. Now, the big part about this one is that it does work for both devices. So it works for the S6 and the S6 Edge. Now, the current thing that I'm still curious about is if this part right here specifically actually does have a plug-in of some sort, because that was my big thing. I really wish there was a way to charge the device while it's in it. Now, I don't know if this is going to be available. It could not be, but I'm hoping, just because I saw that kind of risen, maybe you can pop out and you can plug it in directly right there. But of course, the big part about this is that you can have an S6 and an S6 Edge work with this. However, that means your Note 4 will not. So if you hadn't caught that, that is what it is. This is only for the S6 and S6 Edge. Now, this is improved from the original Gear VR that I have on my Note 4 right now, giving you a slightly wider point of view at 11% more compared to the current Gear VR. So, of course, we always have little improvements. And there is also a wireless charger coming from Samsung, because guess what? The S6 and the S6 Edge have wireless charging finally built in, and it is compatible with all wireless charging standards, which is, of course, very good. So for a brief recap that Samsung has posted themselves on the US version of the site, you do have a 5.1 Quad HD AMOLED screen coming in at impressive pixels per inch that we have not seen on a phone yet. 16 megapixel camera with that launches in 0.7 seconds, which is again just amazing. Auto real-time HDR, better selfies for front taking. Again, you still have the wide-angle selfie and every feature we had on the Note. However, it just improved on this one with the 5 megapixel. You do have a really fast processor that's just better than every processor Samsung has had to date. And this one is, of course, 64-bit octa-core. So that is everything you need to know, except for the price point, which you might want to know. So the price point for the Galaxy S6 and Galaxy S6 Edge are as follows. 32 gig will come in at $699, 64 gig will come in at $799, 128 gig will come in at $899. For the Galaxy S6 Edge, we're seeing a 32 gigabyte starting at $849, 64 gigabyte starting at $949, and 128 gig starting at $1049. Now, just to be clear, these are the European prices, which I changed to US dollars because that is what traditionally has happened. So technically, these are actually the prices in euros. However, traditionally, if you look at all the past history, Samsung has kept those prices the same when converting to the US dollar. So it doesn't mean that even though the euro means it would normally cost more in the US, it would actually be the same price if, again, it is as tradition has led it to be. And of course, the expected launch is April 10th. Now, this is going to be launching in several countries that day. However, my guess is that the US will not be one of them. If I were a betting man, I would guess the US would launch a week after or 2 weeks after. That is, again, my guess to see when the device will be launching. I am very excited for it, though. Again, I would believe that the US will launch either the 17th or the 24th, but we'll just have to wait and see. All right, guys, that was everything you needed to know about the Galaxy S6 and Galaxy S6 Edge. The next is now, as Samsung said. If you did like this video, please leave a thumbs up down below. And if you have more questions about these devices, make sure to tune in every Sunday at 8 p.m. for Android Weekly, where we answer all of your questions and give you all the latest news that happen during the mobile world in the week. This has been RICKY, the Android Guy.